My name is Daniel. I'm 37 years old, and I've spent the last 10 years working as a mechanic. Not just any mechanic, though. I specialize in high-end vehicles, luxury cars that people only dream about. I don't mind the grease under my nails or the smell of oil on my clothes. It's what I'm good at, and it pays the bills. At least, it used to. Lately, though, everything felt off. The cars still came in, the bills still got paid, but something in my gut was telling me that everything around me was slowly falling apart. It wasn't the work, it was my life at home. It had been over a year since the travel restrictions had started, and I hadn't seen my son, Max, in person for what felt like forever. Our calls had become less frequent. I missed his laugh, his goofy voice, the way he would ask me the same questions over and over just to hear my answers. I missed being his dad, but I also felt like I was losing my connection to him, and there was nothing I could do about it. On top of that, Rachel, my wife, had been distant. Not the kind of distant you chalk up to long days or busy schedules. No, this was different. I could feel the gap between us growing wider every day, and I didn't know why. There were signs, small things that at first didn't seem important, but added up when I looked at them all together. The late nights at the office, the unexplained phone calls, the way she would change the subject whenever I asked about her day. But I couldn't put my finger on it. I spent months trying to figure it out. I wasn't the type to jump to conclusions, but when something didn't feel right, I'd dig. I didn't ask her, not directly. Instead, I started checking her phone when she wasn't around, her email, the things she left open on the computer when she thought I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't proud of it, but I needed answers. And then one day, I found it. Evidence. Clear as day. She had been texting someone else, someone I didn't know. Flirty messages, late-night chats, a lot of laughter between the lines. I couldn't believe it at first. I thought I must be reading it wrong. But the more I looked, the clearer it became. She was having an affair. It felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. For days, I couldn't stop thinking about it. My mind kept racing, replaying the messages over and over. The betrayal, the lies, and the worst part, I had no idea how long it had been going on. I didn't confront her, not yet. I couldn't. The anger inside me was like a wildfire, burning hotter by the second, but I couldn't show it. I couldn't make a scene. If I said anything, I would lose her. I wasn't ready for that. But the mental and emotional toll started wearing me down. My work began to slip. I made mistakes, small ones at first, but big enough to make me worry. My body felt like it had aged 10 years in the span of a few months. I was exhausted all the time, dragging myself out of bed, unable to focus at work. The rage I felt whenever I saw Rachel made me sick. I couldn't stop thinking about what she had done, and it was starting to seep into everything. I felt like I was living in a nightmare, trapped in a house with the woman I thought I loved, unable to confront her, yet drowning in my own misery. And still, I stayed quiet, because what could I do? I wasn't just angry, I was lost. That night, I could feel the tension in the air. Rachel hadn't said a word to me since I found the evidence, since I uncovered the truth. She'd been distant, colder than usual, as if nothing had changed, as if nothing had happened. But I knew, and every time I looked at her, I felt like I was staring at a stranger. I was in the kitchen, making a late-night cup of coffee when she came into the room. She didn't look at me at first, but I could feel her eyes on me. The quiet between us was thick, suffocating, and my heart started racing. "Are you going to ignore me all night?" Rachel's voice cut through the silence, a little too sweet for my liking. It was the kind of tone she used when she was trying to manipulate a situation, trying to make everything feel normal when it was anything but. "I'm not ignoring you," I muttered, my eyes focused on the coffee brewing in the machine, anything to avoid looking at her. She walked up behind me, and I could feel her presence like a weight on my shoulders. Her hand rested on my back, but it felt wrong, empty. She was still touching me, but I couldn't feel any warmth. "Look, Daniel," she said, her voice softer now, almost pleading. "I know things have been off lately, but we can work through it. We've always worked through things, haven't we?" I didn't respond immediately. My hands clenched around the mug, and I struggled to hold it steady. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but I held it in, forcing myself to breathe. "You want to work through this?" I finally said, my voice quieter than I intended. "How about you tell me the truth? How long were you planning on lying to me, Rachel?" Her fingers froze on my back, and I knew she could feel the change in the air. I could see it in her eyes. She knew I knew, but instead of the guilt, the shame, the remorse I expected, there was only defensiveness. "What are you talking about?" she asked, as though she genuinely had no idea. "You don't get to play dumb," I snapped, turning to face her. "I saw the messages. I know about him. And I know there's been others. Don't try to lie your way out of this." Her face paled, but then, just as quickly, it twisted into something darker. "You don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice rising. "You think you can accuse me like this, after everything I've done for you, after everything we've built?" I stood there, stunned. How could she still make it sound like I was the one at fault? How could she be so cold? "I'm not the one who's been cheating, Rachel. I'm not the one who's been lying and sneaking around behind someone's back." She stepped closer to me, her eyes narrowing. "You're a hypocrite, Daniel. You've been checking my phone. You've been spying on me. You don't trust me, and now you want to make this all about me?" I recoiled, the sting of her words hitting harder than I expected. "I wasn't spying. I was looking for the truth, and I found it." She shook her head, a sad smile curling on her lips. "No, Daniel. You didn't find the truth. You found your own insecurities. You always think the worst of me. You always want to make things into something they're not." "Stop gaslighting me," I hissed, my patience snapping. "I'm not crazy. I know what's going on." But Rachel wasn't listening. Her voice became softer, more insistent, like she was trying to plant a seed of doubt in my mind. "You're overreacting. You're not thinking straight. You know how hard things have been with the pandemic, with everything we've been through. I'm just lonely, Daniel. I need someone to talk to confide in." Her words were so rehearsed, so practiced, like she had said them 1,000 times before. She was trying to make me question myself, make me feel like I was the problem, but I wasn't the one who had been sneaking around. I felt my anger building again, but I kept my voice steady. "Don't try to make me the villain in this story, Rachel. You're the one who betrayed me. You're the one who's been lying." She stepped back, her face tightening with frustration. "You always make things so dramatic. You make it all about you, Daniel. Can't you see? I'm trying to fix this, and you're just pushing me away." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my calm. The longer she talked, the clearer it became. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't going to take responsibility. She was just trying to twist everything to make me feel like I was the one in the wrong. "I don't know if I can believe you anymore, Rachel," I said quietly, the weight of the truth finally settling in. "And I don't know how much more of this I can take." She opened her mouth to say something, but I didn't wait. I turned and walked out of the room, leaving her standing there, her voice echoing behind me, trying to convince me that it was all just a misunderstanding. But I knew better now. I had the evidence. I had the truth. And I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. As I closed the door behind me, I knew one thing for certain. I was done being gaslit. I was done being the fool. I was going to find out everything she had been hiding, and I would make sure the truth came to light. No more lies, no more pretending. I had a plan, and this time, I wasn't going to back down. I shouldn't have been working on the car that day. I should have been careful, taking it slow. But I was tired, frustrated. Too much was building up inside me. I should have known better than to push through, but my hands moved almost automatically, and before I knew it, the wrench slipped. Pain shot up my arm, a sharp, sudden burn that had me cursing under my breath. I gritted my teeth, clutching my shoulder where the wrench had landed, and tried to steady myself. My head swam, and for a moment, I thought I might pass out. But I managed to get to my feet, though the pain made my knees wobble. I needed to get to the ER. I needed help, but first, I tried calling Rachel. I dialed her number, my hand trembling slightly from the pain, and waited for her to pick up. But she didn't. I left a message, tried again, and then again. Nothing. She didn't pick up, and after the 4th attempt, I realized it wasn't a coincidence. She wasn't just ignoring the call, it was intentional. I was alone. Again. The ER visit was a blur. The doctors gave me painkillers and said I'd be fine after some rest, but all I could think about was Rachel. Why wasn't she there? Where was she when I needed her? By the time I got home, I was already irritated, my mind swirling with anger, confusion, and pain. I dropped my keys on the kitchen counter, trying to shake off the fog from the pain meds, and I called out for her. "Rachel?" But there was no answer. I went upstairs, the silence pressing in from all sides. She wasn't in the bedroom, and she wasn't in the living room either. I checked the back patio, thinking she might have been out there, but then I saw them. There they were, Rachel and another man, standing just outside the house, hidden by the shadows, but not enough for me to miss the embrace. The way he leaned in close, his lips against her neck. My breath caught in my chest, and I froze. I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't. But the evidence was there. I snapped a few quick photos, the cold air biting at my skin as I watched them, unable to move, unable to tear my eyes away from the image I never thought I'd witness. It was happening. My wife, the woman I had trusted, the woman I had fought for, worked for, lived for. She was out there with someone else, betraying me. My legs felt like lead, but I managed to turn and retreat back inside the house, my heart pounding in my chest, the adrenaline kicking in. I couldn't think. I didn't know what to do. All I could focus on was the image in my mind. Rachel, with someone who wasn't me, holding her like I used to. The world started to spin around me as the pain in my shoulder hit again, making me double over in the hallway. I wanted to yell. I wanted to confront her. But instead, I took a deep breath, retreating to my shop, the one place I could think straight, the one place that made sense. There, in the familiar smell of oil and metal, I sat down on the worn stool and pulled out the phone. I looked at the pictures I'd taken, my hands shaking as I zoomed in. The faces weren't clear, but the closeness, the touch, it was all I needed to know. I was betrayed. I had been living in a lie. Rachel had been lying to me for who knows how long. The pain was sharp, the sting of the betrayal cutting deeper than the injury to my shoulder. I felt sick, but it wasn't just physical. My mind raced, and I couldn't get the images out of my head. Was I going to confront her? Did I have the right to? I didn't know. All I knew was that I was done waiting, done pretending everything was fine. It was time to stop being the fool. I spent the next few days lost in the haze of painkillers and rage. Every time I closed my eyes, the image of Rachel and the man outside our house replayed in my mind like a twisted film. I was angry, not just at her but at myself. How had I not seen it sooner? How had I let her pull me along like this for so long? The photos I took became my obsession. I stared at them for hours, unable to tear my eyes away. Her face wasn't clear, but the closeness, the way she leaned into him, the way his hands were all over her, it was enough. But that wasn't enough for me. I needed more. I needed the truth, and I wasn't going to stop until I had it all. I knew Rachel's routine. She'd been unpredictable lately, but she still had habits, things she did when she thought I wasn't watching. I started paying attention to the little things, the texts she deleted before I could see them, the strange phone calls, the late-night drives she never fully explained. My mind raced. This wasn't just about proving she'd betrayed me. This was about taking back control, about taking back something from a life that had become a trap. I spent days setting up cameras around the house, one in the bedroom, one by the back door, another hidden in the living room, all discreet, all silent. The idea of her being watched, of her knowing I could see everything she did, felt almost satisfying, like I had the upper hand for once. It was a new version of me, one that was cold and calculating. I wasn't just a man devastated by betrayal anymore. I was a man with a plan, and I was going to expose her, piece by piece. As the days passed, I reviewed the footage. I watched her come and go, the meaningless interactions, the strange late nights. I almost couldn't believe it when I found what I was looking for. Another man, another visitor when I wasn't home. It wasn't just one man, though. It was multiple. Each time, it was someone new. Some I knew, some I didn't. The betrayal stung more each time I saw the footage. Some of the men I recognized as acquaintances, others as friends of hers, people I'd trusted. My heart pounded every time I saw Rachel with someone else. Every time she kissed a man who wasn't me. Every time they touched, laughed, and talked like everything was fine. I found myself pacing the shop, my chest tight, my hands shaking with a mixture of fury and disbelief. I couldn't believe how much she had lied to me. But the worst part wasn't just the infidelity. It was the way I had let it happen. I had been blind, too trusting. I had been a fool, playing the role of the husband, thinking everything was fine when the truth was right in front of me the entire time. Memories flooded back. The times I'd forgiven her small lies, the times I'd excused her behavior because I loved her, because I wanted to believe in us. I had been so desperate to make it work that I ignored everything that didn't fit the picture. Now, it was all crashing down around me, and the pain was so raw that I wanted to scream. But I didn't. Instead, I made a decision. I wasn't just going to confront her. I was going to make her feel what I had felt for all those months. The loneliness, the isolation, the complete betrayal. I was going to make her realize that I wasn't going to be her fool anymore. I started planning. I needed to confront her, yes. But I wasn't going to just walk into this blind. I wasn't going to give her a chance to manipulate me again. No more lies, no more pretending. I would make sure the truth came out, for her and for me. I didn't just want her to feel guilty. I wanted her to see what she had done to me, to see the destruction her lies had caused, and I wasn't going to back down. I would take control of my life again, no matter what it took. In that moment, something shifted inside me. The anger wasn't just a reaction anymore. It was fuel. Fuel for the revenge I needed to reclaim what was mine, to take back my dignity, to stop being the fool. This was my life, my future, and I wasn't going to let her or anyone else take it from me. I had a plan now, and for the first time in months, I felt like I had control again. 2 months had passed since I first installed the cameras around the house. It felt like an eternity of watching, waiting, and trying to hold it together. Every day I came home, checked the footage, and saw Rachel's lies unfold. Sometimes I found myself wishing I could erase the images from my mind, but there was no going back. The truth was out, and I could no longer ignore it. The weight of it all was suffocating. Every time I looked at her, I saw nothing but a stranger. The woman I thought I loved, the woman I had built my life around, had betrayed me in ways I couldn't even begin to describe. And now I was going to confront her. No more hiding, no more pretending. That night, I was ready. I had everything I needed. The evidence, the footage, the screenshots, the photos. I had my proof. Rachel had just come home from a late-night dinner with friends, the kind of dinner she had been going to for weeks now. Always vague, always unaccounted for. I could feel the tension in the air as soon as she stepped through the door. She smiled, a nervous, forced smile, and her eyes darted around the room, as if she knew something was different. "Hey," she said, trying to sound casual, but there was a quiver in her voice. "How was your day?" "Sit down, Rachel," I said, my voice cold, calm. There was no use in pretending anymore. No more small talk. No more pretending everything was fine. This was it. She hesitated for a moment, sensing something was off, but she sat, crossing her arms, trying to play it cool. "What's going on? Why do you sound so serious?" I didn't waste any time. I pulled the tablet out of my bag and opened the footage. I didn't even say a word as I handed it to her. I let her watch the evidence, the footage of her and the man from outside the house. The other men, each one like a slap to my face. Her face drained of color as she watched the images, and I saw the panic flicker across her eyes. "Daniel," she began, her voice shaky now. "It's not what you think." I held up my hand to stop her. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me again, not this time. "Don't try to lie your way out of this," I said, my voice firm. "I've seen it all. The messages, the lies, the men you've been seeing behind my back. I have all the proof I need." She was quiet for a moment, her lips trembling. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. I had expected an apology, or maybe some sort of excuse, but what I didn't expect was her to turn it back on me. "You don't understand, Daniel," she said suddenly, her voice rising. "I didn't want this. I didn't want any of this, but you've been so distant. You haven't been there for me. You've been checked out for months. I was lonely, Daniel. I needed someone to talk to." I felt my blood boil, but I kept my composure. This wasn't about me anymore. This was about her and the mess she had created. "You don't get to blame me for this," I said through gritted teeth. "You don't get to manipulate me anymore, Rachel. I'm not the one who was sleeping with other men. I'm not the one who betrayed this family." Her face flushed with anger, and she stood up suddenly, pacing the room. "You think you can just throw this all in my face? You think you can just expose me like this, after everything we've been through, Daniel?" I stayed seated, my eyes never leaving her. "I didn't expose you. You did this. You made your choices, and now you have to live with them." Rachel stopped pacing and looked at me, her face twisted with frustration. "I never wanted to hurt you. I just needed more than what you were giving me. I didn't want this to happen, but it did." Her words felt like a slap in the face. "You didn't want to hurt me," I scoffed, standing up now, the anger rising in my chest. "You think I'm the one who's been hurt here? You're the one who tore this family apart. You're the one who's been lying to me, and now you want to act like the victim?" Her eyes welled up with tears, but I didn't feel sorry for her. Not anymore. She had no right to make this about her. She had no right to manipulate me into feeling guilty for her actions. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I'm done, Rachel. I can't do this anymore. I can't live in this lie. You've destroyed everything. She moved toward me, tears streaming down her face now. Please, Daniel, don't do this. Don't leave me. I looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't feel any sympathy. No love, no remorse. Just a hollow emptiness where those feelings used to be. You're not the woman I married anymore, I said, my voice low but steady. And I'm not going to keep playing this game. I'm leaving. Rachel's eyes widened, her mouth opening to say something. But before she could speak, she lunged at me, pushing me away with all her strength. Her anger was palpable, and I could see the desperation in her eyes. But I didn't move. I didn't fight back. Get out, Rachel, I said, my voice hard. Leave. She hesitated for a moment, her breathing heavy, then she turned and stormed out of the room. I stood there, staring at the empty space where she had just been, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. The woman I had loved was gone, and I was finally free. But as the door slammed behind her, I knew this was just the beginning. The emotional toll was profound, but I wasn't going to let her break me any longer. I had made my choice, and now I was moving forward, no matter what it took. The weeks after the confrontation were a blur of cold, calculated motions. Rachel was gone, physically at least, but the emotional aftershock of everything she had done kept me up at night. I had to get through it, though. I had to push forward. The divorce was happening, and there was no turning back now. I met with my lawyer, Nathan, in a small office that smelled of leather and expensive coffee. The room was sparse, but it felt professional, distant, like the entire situation I was in. The whole world felt distant, really. I handed Nathan the evidence I had compiled. Every screenshot, every photo, every moment I had recorded, the footage from the cameras around the house, the messages, the bank transfers, everything. It wasn't just about the infidelity. It was about control, and I was determined to take back what was mine. Nathan was sharp, a man who dealt with high-profile divorces for a living. He didn't flinch when he saw the depth of Rachel's betrayal. He didn't need the backstory. He just got straight to work, outlining the legal steps, ensuring that everything was handled. You've got the upper hand here, Daniel, Nathan said, glancing through the papers I'd handed him. The evidence is solid. She can't argue this. We'll ensure you're protected, financially and emotionally. She'll be held accountable for everything. His words should have reassured me, but they didn't. I wasn't after revenge anymore. I wasn't even after justice. I just wanted it all to be over. I wanted the weight to lift. But there was no relief in sight. Every meeting with Nathan was a reminder of the hollow ache in my chest, the way my life had been torn apart by someone I had trusted. The legal process became a routine. The back and forth with Rachel's lawyer, the paperwork, the filings, the constant waiting for something to happen. Every time I signed a document, it felt like I was severing another tie to the life I had known. But with each signature, I felt a small measure of strength return. I wasn't going to be a victim anymore. I was going to protect myself, even if that meant letting go of everything else. But the emotional toll? That was different. There were moments when I could barely breathe. The flashes of memories, good ones, bad ones, kept coming. The way Rachel used to laugh when I told her about my day at work. The way she would hold my hand when we went out. I couldn't hold on to those memories without feeling the weight of the lies attached to them. But there were other things I was learning too, things I hadn't expected. Rachel's betrayal wasn't just about the affairs. It was the web of lies she had spun around me, the manipulation, the way she had taken me for granted for years. As I delved deeper into her digital history, I found things I didn't want to know. I found men I knew, men I'd trusted, who had been part of this lie. I felt sick, but I wasn't surprised. It was the final nail in the coffin. I had been fooling myself, thinking that I was the only one she had, but the truth was darker than I had imagined, and that realization hurt. It wasn't the betrayal of the affair that got to me anymore. It was the realization that I had been living in a facade, a marriage built on lies, a relationship built on manipulation. I had trusted Rachel, and in return, she had slowly chipped away at me, piece by piece, until there was nothing left. But now, I wasn't going to let her break me anymore. Let's move forward, Nathan said one day, breaking me out of my thoughts. We'll push for the divorce to be uncontested. You'll get what's fair. It wasn't about fairness anymore. I wasn't looking for fairness. I was looking for closure, for peace. As I left Nathan's office that day, I couldn't help but think about all the things I had lost. The years spent building a life that didn't exist. The family I had thought was mine. The future I had envisioned that now seemed like a lie. But there was a part of me that felt free too. The chains had been broken. Rachel's hold over me, the lies, the manipulation, none of it had power over me anymore. And I was determined to make sure it stayed that way. The divorce would happen. It was just a matter of time now. And with that time came the smallest shred of hope. The hope that one day I could rebuild, that I could leave all of this behind, that I could be me again. It had been months since I uncovered Rachel's betrayal, and I was beginning to feel numb. Every day I was processing a new layer of this shattered life I'd been living, and the weight of it all was crushing. But even as I moved through the motions of finalizing the divorce and reclaiming control, there was still one person I couldn't shake, the one person who had been there all along, pretending to be a friend. Amber. She had been Rachel's best friend for years, and I had trusted her. I'd known her as long as I'd known Rachel. They had shared laughs, secrets, and countless late-night talks. But as I'd pieced together the pieces of my marriage's destruction, one name kept coming up: Amber's. It wasn't just Rachel who had been lying to me. Amber knew. Amber had known about the affair for years, and instead of telling me, she had stayed silent. That silence, it was deafening, and it was betrayal in its own right. I had to confront her. I had to know why she had stayed silent, why she had watched me suffer, watched me be manipulated by someone I thought was my friend. I called her, and when she answered, there was no hesitation in my voice. I needed answers. Amber, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. We need to talk. I could feel the shift in her tone as she recognized the weight in my words. What's this about, Daniel? She asked, the unease creeping in. You've known, haven't you? I shot back, unable to keep the bitterness out of my voice. You've known about Rachel's affairs for years, and you didn't say a word to me. You didn't warn me. Why? Why would you do that? There was a long silence on the other end, and I could feel her avoiding my gaze through the phone. Daniel, I didn't... Don't even try to justify it, I interrupted. You knew, and you didn't say anything. You just watched as I was torn apart. Why? She exhaled slowly, her voice dropping. I didn't want to get involved. It wasn't my place. I didn't think it would help if I told you. I didn't want to break up your marriage. I felt a surge of anger in my chest, but I kept it in check. You didn't want to break up my marriage, I said, shaking my head. You didn't want to break up my marriage, but you were perfectly fine watching me get destroyed. You were fine letting me be humiliated, knowing I was being lied to, knowing she was sleeping with other men. I never wanted to hurt you, Daniel, Amber said, her voice weak. I thought it was better if you didn't know. Better for who? I spat. Better for you, better for Rachel, or better for the liar who's been using me as a fool? There was another long silence before Amber finally spoke. I didn't know what to do. I knew it would hurt you, and I didn't want to be the one to do that. I thought it would be easier for you if you didn't know. Easier. The word hung in the air, and I felt the weight of it. But it wasn't easier. It had been harder. The lies, the silence, the feeling that I had no idea who I was married to, that I was trapped in a marriage built on a foundation of deceit. You were supposed to be my friend, I said, my voice breaking. You were supposed to have my back, and instead, you watched as Rachel destroyed everything. You watched as I trusted her, as I built my life around her, and you stayed quiet. I'm sorry, Daniel, she said, her voice now soft and remorseful. I should have told you. I should have done something. But it was too late for apologies, too late for anything. I couldn't go back. I couldn't change the fact that Amber, someone I had trusted, had kept secrets from me, had allowed me to live in ignorance. You should have told me, I said, my voice shaking with the weight of the words. But you didn't. And now, I have to live with the truth that I was never truly loved, that my marriage was a lie, that everything I thought I knew was just a facade. Amber's silence spoke volumes. I could feel the weight of her guilt, the weight of her regret, but it didn't matter. I wasn't angry at her anymore. I was tired of the lies, tired of the manipulation, tired of the endless pain. I need to move on, Amber, I said, my voice hollow. I can't keep living in this nightmare. I can't keep holding on to people who don't care about me. There was a long pause before she finally spoke again. I understand, she whispered. I'm so sorry, Daniel. I should have been there for you. I hung up before she could say anything else. The truth had hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't just Rachel who had betrayed me. It was Amber, too. It was everyone I had trusted. I leaned against the wall, breathing heavily, the weight of everything crashing down on me. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to feel it, the grief, the loss, the crushing realization that I had been living in a lie. But I couldn't stay here. I couldn't stay in this place of anger and regret. I had to move forward, no matter how hard it was. The past had a hold on me, but I was done with it. I was done with the lies, done with the manipulation. And most of all, I was done being the person everyone thought I was. It was time to heal, and it was time to let go. The day of the divorce settlement meeting arrived with a strange, almost eerie calm. I had spent months preparing for this moment, gathering evidence, fighting the emotional battles inside myself, and finally facing the truth. Rachel and I sat in a small, sterile conference room at my lawyer's office. The walls were white, the chairs stiff and uncomfortable, and the air felt heavy with unspoken words. Rachel sat across from me, her face blank, her eyes betraying nothing. I could almost hear her thoughts, her strategy. This was just another step in her carefully orchestrated plan, and she would make it look as painless as possible. Nathan, my lawyer, went over the terms of the settlement calmly, as if this was just another case. He was efficient, moving through the details without emotion. Rachel's lawyer did the same. There was no drama, no grand gestures, just the finalization of something that had been in the works for far too long. I glanced at Rachel as Nathan spoke. Her face remained composed, but I could see the slight tightening of her jaw, the way her hands were folded in front of her, as if she was bracing for something. Her eyes didn't meet mine, though. Not once. There was no acknowledgement of the years we had spent together, the family we once were. It was as though it never mattered to her. Finally, Nathan slid the divorce papers toward me, and then toward Rachel. The signatures were a formality, but I couldn't shake the weight they carried. Rachel signed first, her pen stroke short and detached. When it was my turn, I hesitated, looking at the paper for a moment. It felt unreal, this legal document that officially severed the last ties between us. I signed. Rachel's lawyer handed us both a copy, and the moment was over. There were no apologies, no emotional outbursts. It was as though we were just business partners finalizing a deal. No one mentioned the affairs, the lies, the years I had spent living in a shadow of a marriage. No one needed to. It was all right there, on paper, in the cold, indifferent lines of the divorce settlement. Rachel stood up without a word, gathered her things, and walked out of the room. I didn't stop her. I didn't try to make her feel anything. She had made her choice, and now she was free of me, just as I was free of her. But I wasn't sure I felt free. The weight of the betrayal still pressed on me. The sense of loss was so profound, and yet there was a strange relief mixed in with the sadness. I had won. I had reclaimed my life, but there was nothing to celebrate. As I left the office, I found myself walking down the street with no real direction. The world felt quiet, almost too still. I was legally free, but the emotional scars remained. I had to keep reminding myself that I wasn't just a victim anymore, that I had chosen to move on, chosen to let go of the past. But it didn't feel like a victory. Not yet. The truth had always been more complicated than I expected, and now I was left to navigate the aftermath. The relief that came with the divorce was clouded by the years I had lost, the years I had wasted in a marriage that had never been what I thought it was. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't go back to who I was before. The man I had been was gone, and the man I was becoming was someone different. And maybe that was the first step toward healing. The first few days after the divorce were quieter than I had expected. The house, once filled with Rachel's laughter and the illusion of family, now felt empty. The space between the walls had grown too large for me to ignore, and I couldn't escape the silence. I found myself in a strange limbo, caught between the relief of freedom and the weight of what I had lost. I'd walked away from my marriage, from a life that I had thought was real, but now I was left with nothing but the remnants of the man I used to be. It wasn't just Rachel that I had lost. It was the version of myself I had become for her, for the life we built together. I spent most of my days at the shop, losing myself in work. The sound of the engine revving, the smell of gasoline and leather, the hum of machinery. It was the only thing that kept me from spiraling. When I was at work, I didn't have to think about Rachel or the mess we'd made. I could focus on something tangible, something that didn't involve betrayal and broken dreams. But even then, my mind would wander back to my son, Max. He had always been my anchor, my reason for pushing through the pain, and now, with everything else crumbling around me, he was the only thing that gave me any sense of purpose. Our time together was the only thing I looked forward to, the only time when I felt like I wasn't completely alone. It was almost as if, in the wake of losing Rachel, I had rediscovered what truly mattered. And it wasn't the house, the marriage, or the years I had spent trying to make things work. It was Max. It was the moments we spent together, the small victories and the quiet joys that came from being a father. But there was still the guilt, the relentless, gnawing guilt that had been with me for as long as I could remember. It was the voice that whispered that I had failed, that I should have known sooner, that maybe, just maybe, I could have saved it. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was somehow responsible for the collapse of everything. Even though Rachel had been the one to betray me, a part of me still blamed myself for not seeing the signs sooner, for not being enough. One night, after putting Max to bed, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the empty space where Rachel's things used to be. The weight of the silence pressed down on me, and for the first time in a long time, I let myself feel it. I let myself grieve, not just for the end of my marriage, but for the person I had been before all of this. I had given so much of myself to someone who never truly saw me. I knew I wasn't the same person anymore. The man I had been, the one who trusted and loved with everything he had, was gone. In his place was a man who was scarred, who had been betrayed, who had learned the hard way that love was not enough to hold everything together. And that realization hurt more than anything. But there was also something else stirring inside me, a small, flickering hope. A hope that maybe, just maybe, I could rebuild. Not the life I had lost, but something new. Something for me, for Max. Something that didn't involve the past, the lies, or the manipulation. I didn't have all the answers. I wasn't sure what the future would hold, or how I would ever fully heal from the betrayal that had shattered everything I thought I knew. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let it define me. I wasn't going to stay stuck in the past. The next day, I woke up with a clearer sense of purpose. I decided to take Max on a trip, a simple road trip, just the two of us, to clear my mind and remind myself what truly mattered. I didn't need the past to keep me tethered. I had a future to build. And as we drove, with the windows down and the sun setting on the horizon, I realized that it wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about finding a way to move forward. I wasn't sure what that would look like, but I was ready to find out. The journey ahead wasn't going to be easy, but I was no longer afraid of it. Max turned to me with a grin as we passed the familiar landmarks of our town. "This is fun, Dad," he said, his voice full of excitement. I smiled back, feeling a weight lift off my chest. "Yeah, kid, it is." And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was heading in the right direction. A new beginning, a chance to rebuild, to find peace. It wasn't going to be easy, but for the first time in a long time, I had hope again.